Last thing we were talking about was the boys to men.
Yes.
I wanted to find out, what do you tell a young man, say teenager, about to enter into manhood? I mean, I know you raised. There's just so many men who I'll meet, especially in the church, who use you as the man who taught them how to be a man. What do you tell them? What do you tell someone who's about to enter that scary world from, we were boys, now we're teenagers, now all of a sudden people expecting us to be men?
My encounter with young boys and working with them toward some healthy expression of manhood has been multiple. One is, I say to them, you ain't got to listen to your mama on everything. Now, that is seriously dangerous. But most of the young boys are in single-parented households with women. And the thing that women don't realize is that a lot of their activity, a lot of their articulation is rooted in desperation, not love. A lot of black women are afraid, and therefore, because they know the culture, the way they speak to their sons, it has the fear of the culture and what the culture can do to them. And it has their fear of not being able to meet the need. It also has some of the anger against the father in it, and then some of their own insecurities. So it's like, yo man, your mama is not 100% right. Well, how often does a boy hear that from a man? It's like, that's sacrilegious to say that. But the point of it is, for me, that the poor black home is blamed for being poor because of male absence. Could the poor black home also be the victim of too much female presence? I mean, testosterone can be a problem, but estrogen is not innocent. And when a boy's got a mama, a grandmama, and a sister and an aunt living in the house, that's overkill. So somehow or another, he has to be covered from that, or otherwise it literally seeps into his pores, where everything he thinks and feels is somehow or another related to what he learned and experienced with the women in his life. And so I tell boys, your mothers are not always right. And the other thing that I do for the boys is I will counsel them if their mothers come to me. But what I will do is make an agreement in the counseling session that they are not to be reprimanded once they leave if I get them to tell me a truth that the mother doesn't want told. So if I can secure this young man from mama abuse, which is a form of domestic violence, and it works out, then he knows that his mama will listen to somebody. And the reason mamas are so powerful is they blame everything they do on God. And that's why the average male says, I don't want nothing to do with God. Because mama, before there were PCs, and iPads, mama had God's 800 number, his cell phone number, his social security number. Nobody knew God like mama. So when mama spoke, that was God speaking. And I say to young boys, that is not true. That is not true. The other thing is I listen to them. I listen to them. And at the same time, I challenge them. The other thing that a lot of mothers have had a problem with me on is I emulate what the Holy Ghost did to the apostles in the 2nd chapter of Acts. In the 2nd chapter of Acts, when the Holy Ghost came upon the apostles, they spoke in the language of the people. So I am Reverend Dr. Johnny Ray Youngblood, and I have earned those degrees, and my calling is authentic. I know that at 63 better than I knew at 43 and 33. But my thing is, if I say to a young brother, you're lying. I haven't called him a liar. I'm saying you're lying to me on that issue. And something goes down, I'll say to a young brother, bullshit. And he looks at me. And when he knows that he's bullshitting and I call it on him, he calls me a prophet. Whereas his mama might say, I ain't a preacher. But he knows that I know he's bullshitting. I'll tell you a story. A mother came to me and she was whining and moaning about her youngest son and how he's this, he's that, and the other. He won't listen and she's worried about him and blah, 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 blah. Boy, it was sad, man. It was the blues, and I'm from New Orleans, so I know the blues. So we had a meeting, and when we had the meeting, I sat, I watched him, listened to her, I watched him, I listened to her, I watched him. So I set up the agreement. I said, I'm going to ask him some questions, and I need him to tell me the truth. But you must promise in front of him that you will not engage in any reprimand back home. See, because one of the things we learned from black mamas is you don't put my business in the street. You don't talk about what goes on in this house. See, but when they don't talk about what goes on in the house, they become schizoid. All right? So when we got to talking, and she's whining about how he is, blah, 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 I just waited. And I was prayerful. Trust me, I was prayerful. And finally, I watched him, and he wanted to both say he was sorry for what he was putting her through, and he wanted to honor me, as the man with the white hat on. You know what I mean? Yes. You know how American that is. So finally, I said, yo, man, let me ask you something. And he said, what is it, Pastor? I think he was about 15 then. I said, are you getting any pussy yet? And he looked at his mother, and his mother looked at him, and he looked at his mother, and his mother looked at him, and they both looked at me, and I'm waiting for the answer. And he remembers the agreement we had. So he said, yeah. And his mother said, could I be excused from this meeting? And she got up and she walked out because she couldn't handle the idea that her son was sexually engaged. And with a boy, when he starts to get something happens to him. And so if mama's going to play that her baby is going to be her virgin daughter, then she's not dealing with the true person, And when there's no man around to lovingly and healthily confront the young brother, then what happens is he grows up out of balance because he then has to take his cues from his peers. So we wind up with gangs. And we wind up with brothers being more comfortable in prison. And we wind up even with brothers being more comfortable being victims of other brothers. And we also wind up with brothers who we call are pussy whipped.
Wow. So can a single mother raise a male?
Yes. She can raise him to be successful in a society where he can get a job, get an education, and where he can make good money. All right? But his identity and his awareness of